Elevate. Hey, I want to ask you, have you ever watched Forky Asks a Question? When my family is perusing Disney Plus, sometimes we'll turn it on. I know, we'll admit it. But if you haven't seen it, Forky is a character from the Toy Story world who is constantly asking questions like, what is cheese? What is a friend? What is love? I personally think they should do an episode on the question, what is a question? Like, brain explosion. That'd be crazy. But one thing is for sure in every episode, and that is Forky is constantly getting on people's nerves with all of his questions. And I want to ask you, have you ever been told not to ask so many questions? Maybe you felt annoying or guilty for asking questions, especially when it comes to your faith. A few weeks ago, or probably about a month ago, in quarantine, our internet just stopped working in the middle of the day. And when I have kids who have to do e-learning and I have work to do and my wife has work to do, that is not a good thing. So when the internet went out, I didn't just go, well, I guess we have no internet. No, I started asking questions so I could figure out the solution myself. And I was able to do it. And here's the deal. When it comes to our faith, sometimes questions are viewed as us drifting from our faith in God, and that's just not the truth. Asking questions is actually a good thing. My questions weren't a sign that I didn't have faith. My questions actually deepened my faith. It gave me a chance to learn more about God. So faith isn't about listening and accepting whatever someone tells you. Faith is continuing to search for God in the midst of all of your questions. So here's what I want to say. On a scale of never, sometimes, or always, how often do you have doubts or questions about God? And are you able to share those doubts and questions with anyone? And if so, who? See, here's the good news. The good news is that we are not the first ones to ever have a question or doubt about God. The book of Psalms is a book of worship and songs to God. And these songs were often opportunities for people to praise God, but they were not always joyful. Many of the Psalms were expressions of desperation and heartache and mourning. And here's what we read in Psalm chapter 88, verse 1 through 5. It says, Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. I am overwhelmed with troubles, and my life draws near to death. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one without strength. I am set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. Talk about some strong words and emotions. There's some sarcasm that I really sense, some anger and desperation. He even makes accusatory statements. And he continues on, and then we read in verse 18 as the psalmist ends the chapter. And here's what he says. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. And I can't read that without wanting to go, hello, darkness, my old friend, and sing. But here's the deal. There's some raw honesty in this psalm. The psalmist is wondering if God is going to show up or if God has completely abandoned him. It doesn't have a happy or hopeful ending. It ends by saying that the psalmist is alone and that everything just feels dark. And this must have been hard to write. But I don't know about you, I kind of find it comforting to read. It's encouraging to know that God doesn't always expect us to just be happy and carefree, that God allows us to express our pain honestly, openly, and publicly. Because sometimes life is painful. It's unfair and it's overwhelming. And so it makes sense that sometimes we might wonder or even doubt if God will come through. And this psalm reveals that it's okay to be raw and honest. That God can handle our anger and our disappointment and our frustration and even our doubt. See, doubts and questions can take many forms. Sometimes we blame God for our painful situation. Our prayers to God feel dark and hopeless. And other times, in the midst of our deepest pain, while we still may be asking where God is, we still have a sense of hope. Despite our circumstances, we're still able to muster some amount of trust in God's faithfulness. And isn't it reassuring that our journeys with God, even in our questions and our doubts, don't all have to follow a specific formula? Sometimes we doubt or question God because we're in pain. Sometimes it's because we just need to vent or think or work things through. Sometimes it's because we're asking hard questions and really, really, really trying to find the answers. And I don't know what doubts or questions you have now or will have in the future, but I hope that you will remember this. That like the psalmists, like everyone who's ever followed God, and even like Jesus, you are not alone. You're not alone in your questions, your doubts, your pain, or your frustration. So when we think that we are alone in our doubts and questions, it's easy to lose hope. But when we understand that we're not alone, and that having doubts and questions doesn't disqualify us from following Jesus, we can discover how to move forward. They don't necessarily mean that you don't have faith. Asking questions like why is a part of how God created you and I. You're not alone because you're not the only one who has ever had doubts or questions. And you're not alone because in the midst of everything, God remains faithful to you. God never leaves your side. When you know you're not alone, you can begin to find hope in the midst of your biggest questions and doubts. So I'll say it one more time. You are not alone in the midst of your doubts and your questions.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good.
You're never gonna let me down. never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down.